I was asked to share some words of Hizuk. I feel like I shouldn't be sharing words of Hizuk with you. I have received so much Hizuk from you, seeing how Klal Yisrael, how the Jewish people have responded to this tragedy has really been inspiring for me. I think especially of one of my students here at YU who jumped on the plane to return to Israel, to return to his service in Sahel as soon as he can. Another student who remarkably just this past week asked if he can check his phone on Shabbos because he might be called up to duty. Am Yisrael has responded in such an incredible way, and for me that's been so inspiring. But since I was asked to share words of Chizuk, I'll share with you one short thought that I had. In Yeshiva University, where I teach, we of course have been responding to this tragedy with tefillah, with prayers, with fasting, with slichos, with additional supplications. And on Thursday, when we were saying these slichos for Yom Kippur Katan, I noticed a very interesting pattern. The feeling of despondency that are depicted in these prayers, this feeling of what are we going to do? Our enemies have trampled upon us. They've killed the young. They've killed the innocent. We're so helpless. God save the remainder of the Jewish people. I was like, wow, this isn't new. This isn't new. And then a little bit later, we were saying Tehillim, we were saying Psalms. And again, I was struck by the fact that this is not new. This has been a situation which, sadly, we've experienced so much throughout our exile. And Tehillim, Asaf is saying, Nasnu es nivlas avadecha ma'achal of hashamayim. They've left your servants' corpses as food for the birds of heaven. Basar chasidecha l'chaiso aretz, the flesh of your faithful for the wild beasts. Shavchu damam kamayim, they've spilled blood like water. Svivos Yerushalayim ve'en kover, around Yerushalayim, and there's no one to bury them. Elsewhere, Amru, our enemies have said, L'chu v'nachidei migai, let us wipe them out as a nation. V'lo yizacher shem Yisrael od, such that Israel's name will no longer be mentioned. The feelings of despondency we have now are not new. We've experienced them forever. As long as we've been a nation, there have been people who have tried to wipe us out. And that, of course, is sad. But it gives us hope as well. It gives us hope because despite our enemies having tried to wipe us out all this time, they've never succeeded. It gives us hope for another reason, though, because in those slichos, you get the impression that this was a feeling that they've always lived with, that the Jewish people were always in a state of terror, always wondering when the next pogrom would come. Who knows if we'd live out the rest of the year? And though the recent events, of course, are very tragic, they are such a shock for us because, thankfully, we do generally feel secure. And while the world is not perfect and it's not safe, that's also something that gives me chizuk. But perhaps even more than that is that when those slichos are depicting the Jewish people being fodder for their enemies, they didn't really have much hope in terms of defending themselves. And now, as I see my students, as I see Klal Yisrael arm themselves for battle and volunteer for service and go so far beyond the duty and put their necks out, so that gives me chizuk as well. Because indeed, things are so different now than they were then. And that's really the message I want to leave you with. Tonight, I was at a wedding. And of course, at a wedding, I was filled with mixed emotions. We have to sing and dance, and we have to rejoice that a new family in Klal Yisrael is being started. But of course, our hearts are also heavy. It's a very, very complex time. And during the chuppah, they started playing a song. And this is a song that's a pasuk in Zechariah, pasuk that many of us know. Ko amar Hashem tzvakos, so says God. Od yeshvu zkenim uzkenos berchovos Yerushalayim. One day, there will be elderly people sitting in the streets of Jerusalem. Vish al mishanto biado merov yamim, each with a staff in his hand because they're elderly of days. There'll be children singing and playing in the streets. A nevuah of hope. For so long, this nevuah was a nevuah of hope, but we've all merited to see it fulfilled in our day. My great-great-grandfathers and grandmothers probably never imagined seeing it. But we've all been to Yerushalayim, and we've seen children playing in the streets. We've seen the elderly sitting. And that prophecy of hope has been fulfilled. This, of course, is Rabbi Akiva's hopeful message as well. And we're confident as well, as bad as things are now, that the prophecies of peace, the prophecies of shalom that are depicted as well will once again will come to fruition. And though things are bad and though our hearts are heavy, we have confidence in that as well. B'chol dor vador omdim aleinu l'chalosenu. In every generation they stand up against us to destroy us, as we say each and every year at the Seder. But Kadosh Baruch Hu matzilenu miyadam, God saves us from their hands. And this time as well, and we pray that it will be quickly and without any more bloodshed. This time as well, may God save us and may He bring peace. Oseh shalom b'mirumav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael b'miru amen.